Good evening, everyone. We continue our study in the book of First Kings in chapter 8. Now, we have spent a number of chapters looking at the construction of the temple. And then we had a short detour to talk about the construction of the palace or the house of Solomon and the entire complex. And then we continue to look at all the implements, the pillars, the things that's outside of the temple. And we completed that in chapter 7. Now that we are looking at this, after 7.5 years of constructing all these things, uh, we begin by this word, and then, meaning after the completion of the temple, after the completion of everything that had to be done. Now, Solomon had gathered the elders of Israel and all the heads of the tribes. Now, this word here, this is gathered or assembled. This is a good word. Then the elders, the older ones, the older who are leaders or representatives. Now, one of the things that we need to remember is that this is an ancient Eastern practice. The idea of the elders in the ancient times is that these are literally older people. They are the oldest in the tribes, right? You can say. And when you talk about elders, they are the what we call decision makers. They have lived long enough, they have appreciated the things that's happening, and they are old and wise. That's the picture of what we see from the word elder. Then we have this other word, the heads of the tribes. Now, by heads of the tribes, we're talking about the the well, I guess head is good. The heads of the clans. In our modern day, it will be like a clan. And so there are 12 tribes in Israel, and each of the head, each clan has their own heads. And apart from that, as a, well, I guess a leadership committee for the entire nation of Israel, they are made up of these decision makers who are old. Now we look at another phrase here. It says that all the heads of the tribes, the heads of the tribes are made up of the leaders of the fathers of the sons of Israel. And this is what we see as an A and a B, right? This is an A and this is a B. So the heads of the tribes are the leaders, right? They are the fathers. So heads here would mean that these are the fathers of the sons of Israel, which are the 12 tribes, right? 12 tribes. And so the heads of clans now joins the elders, the decision makers of the nation, and they join to Solomon the king. And this is what it reads. They they come together to King Solomon in Jerusalem. And the intent here uh, is to bring up the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord from the city of David, that is Zion. Now, this word here, to bring up is a word that is to cause, cause to ascend, which means that we are now looking at this kind of an elevation. And this is the city of David. And then we have the temple. And so when we talk about going up or bringing up, so this word here would be to take it from here and to go up. And so this is up, to ascend, to bring it up, and to bring what up? And so the words here is very clear: the Ark of the Covenant. Now, the Ark of the Covenant was kept in the city of David under a tent, which David first brought in 2 Samuel chapter 6. And it stayed there ever since. And so this is the picture of verse 1, to move from the city of David and to go up to the temple. Verse 2, it says here, so, and well, so is actually, and then, after the fact that Solomon called all of them together, then all the men of Israel gathered themselves before King Solomon at the feast in the month of Ethanim. That is the 7th month. So let's break this down a little bit. So all of the men of Israel, that would be the elders, that would be the heads of the tribes, who are the leaders of the fathers, who are the fathers of the sons of Israel. So when it says all the men of Israel, it doesn't mean every single male in Israel. So this is all the representatives, all the representatives of the children of Israel. Then they had gathered. This word is gathered. Or I think we could use the word congregated, right? Congregated. They congregated themselves to the king. Now, this one is before King Solomon. This word really is towards, which means that they are all in the place and Solomon is here. And so this is towards as well. We also have the word before, which means in the face or towards the face. So this is the word towards King Solomon. And they were there at the feast. Now, the feast here comes from the word Chag. And so Chag literally is, how should we say? It is, it gives us a picture that they are gathering, okay, gathering together, and they usually form a circle, and then they would dance and eat and drink. And this is what Chag actually means: feast, right? Feast. And so they are supposed to have a feast in the month of Ethanim. It is the 7th month. The 7th month, originally in Exodus chapter 12, would be the month of Nisan. And God says, move this to the first of the month, because that is the month that they are leaving Egypt, so that every year in the month of Nisan, they always remember that this major event happened. Now, Nisan was originally the 7th month. And so what we have now is that the eventual 7th month is what today, at that time, is called Ethanim. Today is called Tishrei, which is, well, this month, actually, this month. And in this particular month, there are a few feasts that is going on. One is the Teruach, which is the trumpet. Next is the Yom Kippur atonement. And then we have Sukkot, which is tabernacles. And so one of the things that you find is that this particular month, the 7th month, has a number of feasts. And it was a great time to actually do this. Now, what is important for us to realize that in chapter 5, chapter 6, right? Chapter 6, the last verse of chapter 6, verse 38, it was completed in the 11th year, right? 11th year, in the 8th month. And now in First Kings, this is chapter 8, and in verse 2, it didn't tell us which year that it's in, but all we need to know is that it was after that, and it's likely to be the 12th year of the event, right? So it's the 12th year, and in the 7th month, which is almost a year after the completion. And the thing is, there was a lot that needs to be prepared for this particular festival. And it's not just the 3 festivals of Teruach, of Yom Kippur, or of Sukkot. It was very much to celebrate also the readiness of the temple. And we will take a look at the importance of this event. After Solomon had gathered them, all the representatives of the men of Israel came together. Verse 3 is also an and then. And then all the elders of Israel came. And then, right? And then the priests themselves took up the ark. Now, this word here, took up, it is not ascend. This word here is to lift up, right? Lift up or bear up. And that is the word that's being used here, to carry the ark. And so, if you recall back in 2 Samuel chapter 6, the incident of how the Ark of the Covenant was supposed to be carried on its poles. They initially left it in a cart and it fell over. Somebody touched it and the person died. All of these happened in the time of David. And so now in the time of Solomon, it did not repeat itself. The error was not repeated. And so now we have the priests that will bear up the ark, that will be lift by the poles. Lift by the poles. And that would be the correct way of transporting the ark. Number 2, it would be the priest that will do that, not just anyone. And it's not going to be on a cart. Now in verse 4, it tells us this, and they brought up means ascend, and they caused the ark to ascend. The ark of the Lord, the ark of the covenant, it's all the same meaning, right? The same meaning. Then they also brought the tent of meeting. Now the tent of meeting is in Gibeon. The ark of the Lord is in Zion, the city of David. And so these are the implements that are now being brought, including all the holy utensils which were in the tent. Now, when we talk about the tent, we're talking about the same one here. This is the Ohel Moed. This would be the tent of appointment. The tent of meeting, right? Tent of appointment. And they were all in there. And so the priests and the Levites brought them up. The ark itself has to be carried by the priests, but everything else can be assisted by the Levites. And so they did a proper job and brought it up to the place where the temple was built. Verse 5. King Solomon and all the congregation of Israel who were gathered together with him on that day, on this day, were with him before the ark. Now notice this is before the ark of the covenant, the ark of God, of the Lord. And they were sacrificing. Now this word sacrificing literally means to slaughter, right? To slaughter so many sheep. Now this word sheep, by the way, zone, are the small four-legged. And so this would be sheep or goats, right? And then you have oxen that they could not be counted or numbered. Now, what this word here means that it is innumerable. Generally, you would hear of the phrase like the sand on the shore, like the stars in the sky. And that would be to depict or describe the situation where you just can't count. It's just too many to count. In verse 6, this word here is, and then the priest brought the ark of the covenant, also called the ark of the Lord, to its place. Where do you place this? It's in the inner sanctuary of the house. Now, you may understand a couple of things. Number one, the inner sanctuary, literally, it's the well, we can say it is the innermost room, which we call the Holy of Holies. But here in the description, it is the inner sanctuary of the house. Every time you hear some of these words, we tend to think that, oh, these are not very special words. But in Hebrew, it is special. This is the house of God, of the Lord. And then this is called the most holy place, the Holy of Holies, the Holy of the Holies, of all the holy things, right? This is why it's called the most holy place in English, but the Holy of Holies, or the most holy of the holy things, or the holy places. The sanctuary is holy, but in the sanctuary, it's made up of two portions, right? 20 cubits, 40 cubits. And so we have this idea that this is called the sanctuary and this is holy. And this is the holiest, if you compare. Now, what does holy actually mean? I want to point out to you. Every time we say holy, we tend to have this odd thinking, right? The word holy, uh, we can see that in Genesis chapter 2, basically means special. Why is it special? Because it is set apart. When it is set apart, it is different. Now, this is in comparison to what is common. What is common is ordinary, something that you do all the time, something that you use all the time. But when it is holy, it means that it is special. So I'm just trying to help us understand this. In Genesis chapter 2, God worked for 6 days and he rested on the seventh day and he made it holy. So that is the word. He made it special. He set it apart. It was different because every day God did his work. First day, second day, third day, fourth day, fifth day, sixth day. And then all these days are called common or ordinary. We do things like this all the time, but come the seventh day, God says he rested, he stopped doing everything that he did, and he made it holy. That's what we mean by the holy place. He made it special, he made it different, right? He made it different. So this house of God is holy because it is very different from all the houses and tents that Solomon has, that the people are living in. It's very different. The house of God is holy. Why is it holy? Why is it different? Because God designed it himself. God made it the way he made it. God's house, God's rules, God's design. Who can go in? Who cannot go in? When they go in, what do they do? How far can they go in? And there are two compartments, the holy and the holiest of the place. Now, the house of God is holy. The front part is called holy place. The back part is called the holy of holies or the most holy place. Why? Because it's even more special. Only the high priest can go in once a year during Yom Kippur. And what is in the holiest place? It is the ark of the covenant of the Lord. It is kept in the most holy place and is situated under the wings of the cherubim, which tells us that we can see it this way. We have the wings of one cherubim and then another cherubim, and both the wings touch the walls, and then in the middle they touch each other. This whole place is in gold, and right underneath would be the Ark of the Covenant. So you see this Ark of the Covenant situated underneath the wings. At the same time, you find that the poles is over there. And that's how it is located. It says here, for the cherubim spread their wings over the place of the ark. Just like this, right? Just like this. And the cherubim made a covering over the ark, and it's carrying poles from above, which tells us that you have this cherubim. It looks something like this. I'm just giving you the artist's impression. And this would be the wall. And the Ark of the Covenant would have been situated right here, underneath with the poles. And then you have the cherubim on top, which is the covering. So this is what it means when it is saying that the cherubim made the covering And this is what it means by making the covering. And so all of this is situated underneath the wings. Now in verse 8, it says that the poles, and then the poles were so long that the ends of the poles could be seen from the holy place in front of the inner sanctuary. And so what we can say is these poles, right? These poles right here are seen from the sanctuary. And then we have a door, and it's located at the door so that you can see the poles sticking out. Now, what that may mean is that there is also eventually a curtain. And so what you see is there is a curtain here, right? And so if you think of it this way, this is the curtain, and then the poles is jutting out. And this is the Ark of the Covenant inside. That is what it means by can be seen from the sanctuary. Now, what is in the ark? They could not be seen outside. It's like this to this day. Now, we say this day, it means the day of writing, of documenting. It is not talking about today. It is this day in the day of the author, the day of the author of writing. Now, there was nothing in the ark except the 2 tablets of stone which Moses put there at Horeb. This was done at the time of the book of Exodus to make 2 more, right? Where the Lord made a covenant with the sons of Israel when they came out of the land of Egypt. After Moses broke the tablets, God made another one. And that was the one that was put into the ark. But there is nothing else in there. The pot of manna is gone. Aaron's rod that budded was gone. So there is nothing there. That is what it means. The only thing that's in there is now the tablets of stone, which is the 10 statements or the 10 commandments. And what we now can see in the temple, the presence of God contains the Torah of God. That's the thing. Everything else has gone, but the Torah is still intact. The jar of manna has dissipated. The rod of Aaron has gone away somewhere, we're not told. But the one that never moved really is the 2 stones that God wrote with his hands. Now I want all of us to pay attention to the next few verses, because the next few verses gives us a very interesting picture of how Solomon viewed the presence of God. Verse 10. It says here, and then it happened that when the priest came from the holy place, the cloud filled the house of the Lord, so that the priest could not stand to minister because of the cloud, for the glory of the Lord filled the house of the Lord. So let's break this down so that we can understand what the Hebrew is saying. So now we say that it happened when the priest came from the holy place. The holy place is the sanctuary, which is the outer portion, right? They came out, right? Came out from the holy place. So what you find is that you have the description this way. And then you have the Holy of Holies, and then you've got the two pillars, right? They have the porch. So we're talking about this place went out, and these are all the priests. The priests. They went out. They went out from the holy place. This is called the holy place, also called the sanctuary. The entire place is the house of the Lord. And so these are the compartments where we are talking about. And we have here the ark of God, right? The ark of the Lord. And so what was happening? So let's take a look at what the text is actually saying. When the priest came out from the holy place like this, the cloud filled the house of the Lord. So what is this word cloud? This is anan, literally cloud, as cloud in the skies, right? As if clouds in the skies. Now, this is the visual description, all right? The visual description. What you see is like clouds coming in. And so, if I were to show you, this is what happens. This is clouds inside, right? Clouds inside. And basically, it's just filled the whole place. Now, it didn't say that it filled the inside, but it would probably would have filled the inside because nobody can see the inside. They could only see from the outside here to the sanctuary. That's all they can see. Nobody can see into the Holy of Holies. And so as they came out, the whole place was filled with cloud. Notice this is not smoke. Now it is seen as cloud in this case because if you recall, in the wilderness, whenever God stopped, the cloud of God, the pillar of cloud, will then rest upon the tabernacle, and that's where uh, the um, the ark of God is kept. And so we are now seeing that the cloud, the pillar of cloud, represents the movement of God. When the pillar of cloud moved, then everybody packs up and they have to go. When the pillar of cloud stopped, they all rest and sit down and put up the tents, and the tabernacle is put up. So now that we come to 1 Kings chapter 8, the word cloud again is used, and the cloud is now filling the house of the Lord in the inside. So they're not seeing from the outside that something came from the top and then rested on the house. This is the priests. These are the priests who look back and says, wow, the whole place is just filled with cloud, not smoke, because there is a different word for smoke. And so the cloud represents, right? Let me put it here. The cloud represents the presence of God. And so now we say that the priest could not stand to minister, to do things in the sanctuary, to do whatever they need to do in the sanctuary. Now, notice this word is stand, could not stand. Verse 11 says, is to stand, to be upright, right? To be upright, uh, to, well, I guess literally, right? Literally doing it standing up. They do not do it by crawling in. They don't do it by squatting. They don't do it by sitting. This is a very vivid imagery. The priest cannot stand in the holy place to serve, to do according to what God told them to do, because they were, I guess you could say, they were overwhelmed by the presence of God, which is demonstrated by the cloud, that they have no place to stand, right? Because of the cloud. They have no space to stand, to do anything. Then we have another word here, for the glory of the Lord filled the house of the Lord. And so now we see this, the glory of the Lord is a concept, right? The glory of the Lord is a concept. Glory means weight, right? Weight. Cloud means cloud. And so cloud of God, the cloud of God equals or symbolizes the, also here, symbolizes the glory of God, right? Symbolizes the glory of God. Now, this is the imagery that Solomon is looking at, and this is the text that is being documented for us as what is seen, visually seen, that the cloud of God represents the glory of God. And the idea of filling is very visual and it's very physical. And it's so physical that the cloud that filled the sanctuary, the house of God, forced the priest to leave the sanctuary. It is that awesome, in that sense. It's that awesome. Now, we now look at verse 12. Verse 12, then Solomon said, this is then, after all these things happen, Solomon is looking, right? He's looking, he's observing. And remember, Solomon is wise. He has insight and he shares his understanding. Then Solomon said, the Lord has said that he would dwell in the thick darkness. You find this in Leviticus chapter 16, verse 12. It says, for in the cloud will I appear upon the ark cover. This is talking about how God represents cloud, himself by the cloud. So in the thick darkness literally means this, will dwell in, this word is Arafel. Thick darkness is Arafel. Just to learn some Hebrew. This is literally thick darkness, heavy, dark clouds. And basically, when the heavy dark clouds come into the holy place and fill the holy place, what can you see? Nothing. You can only see the thick clouds, and it is dark, mainly because there is no light in there. And so the presence of God, it says here that God will dwell, will stay, will reside. And this word here literally shows the presence. So in Hebrew, you would find that whenever we talk about cloud, when we talk about glory, whenever we talk about thick clouds or thick darkness, Arafel, uh, you will have to then in our minds recognize, right? Recognize that this really depicts the presence of God. So the cloud depicts the presence of God. It symbolizes the glory of God. And so whenever you talk about darkness, this is not darkness as in inside, outside, without light. This is thick darkness, and thick darkness actually means thick clouds. Darkness is a thing in this sense, where thick clouds, or well, if you use our modern day terminology, it would be fog, I guess. Then you find that this is how the presence of God is described in words. It is not possible to take a picture of the glory of God or the presence of God. And you know that from the time of the wilderness, there is always a pillar of cloud, and that always represents God's presence. Whenever it comes down, Moses will go to the tabernacle. And so, again, this is another way of showing us in First Kings, in the wisdom of Solomon, his insight and knowledge of God tells us that, yes, this is where God dwells. When you see that, you find that the glory of God is in his house. And so now let us conclude verse 13. In our last verse for today, Solomon looks at the view of the priests running out of the thick, dark clouds that's in the sanctuary. It's all over the place. It's filling it to the brim. And then he says that is the presence of God, that God is dwelling in his house. So, literally, in the way that Solomon looks at this, God has accepted delivery of his house. And God is happy. The house is exactly where it is. And so it says, I have truly built you a lofty house. Now, this word lofty literally means um, an exalted house. It also means a, a lofty, an elevated residence. So lofty house means a great dwelling, something that is beyond imagination. I think that would be a better way of looking at it. That God's residence is ready and is greatest. It is lofty, it is grand, it is majestic. And then this word, a lofty house, is equivalent to a place for your dwelling. So this one would be an A, and this is a B. So a lofty house also means a place for you to dwell, to sit, right? To sit, to reside. And it says here, forever. And this one is olam, means long, long time. Although we have this word forever in the English, in the Hebrew, olam literally means a long time. And so that would be the picture and the declaration of Solomon, that he now recognizes that he has truly built. What he has built is God's great majestic, awesome house. It is a place where God will be present for a long, long time, forever in the English. All right. Now, what is significant here would be this. This is showing that God is here in Jerusalem, in the temple. He has demonstrated his presence by the dark, thick clouds. He has chased out all the people, the priests who were in there. And it is symbolizing the glory of God. And it is also telling us that this is the place where God has appointed to meet everyone and to have all the sacrifices done at this place where he has placed his name, his character. And it will be in Jerusalem, in this temple, in this altar, and thereby, starting from this day forward, that no one is to sacrifice to God in any altars anywhere in the nation, in any place in Israel. This is the significance of verse 13. Where God is, that's where they will make the offering, the sacrifices, and then we will see what happens in the later verses. And this is significant, very, very significant. So we have learned about the dedication, the moving of the ark, of the tabernacle, of the utensils, of everything that needs to be in place. And once everything was in place, God showed his favor by showing his presence. So we can actually see the presence of God is really not always bright light. Right? We see that the presence of God in the text where we read in Exodus, when we read in Numbers, uh, is always in darkness, in clouds, in thick, dark clouds. And here, again, reminding us his presence is in thick, dark clouds. And thereby showing us this is God. His glory and his presence is felt, is seen, is known, is understood, and everyone can now look at this sight, behold, and be at awe at the majesty of God, that this is the place that God has appointed. That is what verse 13 is all about. And with this, we come to the end of our session today, and we will carry on tomorrow.